Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second edition of Teacher Talk in 2021. Thank you all so much for joining in, and a huge thank you to our panelists and moderators for making this happen. Teacher Talk is brought to you by LifeChanger of the Year, National Life Group's K-12 Recognition Program. It's a national recognition program that honors K-12 school employees all across the country. And Teacher Talk is our webinar series designed for K-12 educators, led by K-12 educators. And as I said, this is the second installment of 2021. I am so excited about this one because it is part of a 3-part leadership series. So this is the second one. It is on unfinished leadership. If you were lucky enough to join us for the first one on unlearning leadership, then you know how great this is going to be. If this is your first time with us, you are in for an awesome webinar. So again, it's part of a 3-part series. We have one more come after this. It is Student Voice in Leadership. And it is all presented in collaboration with members of the American Association of School Administrators. So tonight, I have Dr. Michael Lubelfeld, I am sorry, I just butchered that, and Dr. Nick Poliak with us. They are going to kick this off, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you guys and our first class group of panelists for an incredible webinar. So there you are, Dr. Mike and Nick.
Mallory, thank you so much. It is an absolute honor to be here. My name is Mike Lubelfeld. I'm the superintendent of schools at North Shore School District 112, where we proudly serve children from Highland Park, Highwood, and the town of Fort Sheridan. Been a superintendent for about 11 years. Absolutely love it. This has been the strangest year ever, but happy and healthy 2021 to everybody. I'm here with my good friend Nick Poliak, and Nick's going to tell you a little bit about himself, and then we're going to get this webinar started. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
Sounds good. Welcome. Thanks, Mike. Welcome everyone here tonight. My name is Nick Poliak. I'm the proud superintendent for the Leiden High School District in suburban Chicago. We're located just outside beautiful O'Hare International Airport. And I've been a public educator for the last 22 years, the last 12 of which I've been fortunate to be a superintendent. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back to Mike and have him introduce our outstanding panelists for the evening.
We have 3 superstars tonight who are here to talk to you about the concept of unfinished leadership. We have Education Dive Superintendent of the Year, Marlon Stiles from Middletown, Ohio, Midi Rising, hashtag Marlon's good man, good friend, great leader. We've got Dr. Courtney Orzel, the Director of Professional Development for the Illinois Association of School Administrators. She is also a recovering superintendent of schools, having recently served in South Suburban Chicagoland. And we've got one of the best teachers ever, John Bogey. He is a teacher at Wayne Thomas Elementary School in Highland Park. John's got an awesome story, and we're all here tonight to talk about the concept of being unfinished. Nick, before we turn it into our question and answer part of the webinar, would you talk a little bit about what it means to be an unfinished leader, please?
Yeah, it's an interesting word, unfinished. Some people will look at it with a positive connotation. Some people will look at it with a negative connotation. We see it as a positive, to acknowledge the fact that we're all unfinished. As we think about this journey that we're on, a lot of times people will talk about I want to be the best version of myself. We believe there's no such thing as the best version. We believe there's only the next version. We're in this constant state of iteration, this constant state of growth. And so, we ask that people always try to remain unfinished. What would you want to add on to that, Mike?
I would. Nick and I and PJ Capozzi, rock star superintendent from an area just outside of Rockford, Illinois, Northwest Illinois, under the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, which abruptly and with no anticipation or planning closed the brick and mortar in-person schooling that we've known for decades, actually centuries, called upon us to actually pull out our skills, called upon us to actually apply adaptive change management and leadership, which is unusual and awesome and sort of top shelf, and called upon us to realize that no matter how successful we had been pre-COVID, and no matter what the accolades we had or the district was going on or the classroom was going on, right now and right there and right then, we were unfinished in terms of actually having to figure it out and do stuff together collaboratively with our teachers, with our parents, with our students to keep going and lead differently. And under that backdrop, Nick, PJ, and I wrote the book, The Unfinished Leader, available out in May of 2021. And it's from Roman and Littlefield Publishers. It'll probably be a bestseller, so you'll probably want to order it so it doesn't get off the shelves. But really, we're not here to sell a book or anything. We're here to talk through the concept of being unfinished. Through the course of the writing of the book and the researching of it and the interviewing of people, we realize the excitement under a backdrop of empathy and equity and adaptive leadership and adapting and developing and communicating and leading, that being unfinished is actually a state of mind and a state of being. We're never going to arrive there. We simply want to get on the right process or get on the right bus, so to speak, so we can keep going there and then go the other there and keep going to the other there. So tonight we're going to talk about the concept of being unfinished with really award-winning teacher, superintendent, professional developer, who've also had different roles in their lives. Nick, why don't we get the party started? Oh, we should do that by the first question.
No. Be patient. I'll fix this for you, Mike.
Thank you so much.
What I'd like to do is have our panelists briefly introduce themselves, let us know who they are, what they do, and maybe tell us something that you're looking forward to now that we're in 2021. Courtney, you want to start off?
I'd love to. Thanks for having me. I'm Courtney Roselle. Mike did a great job of doing a brief introduction there, Associate Director of Professional Development for IASA, our State Superintendents Association in Illinois. I am a recovering superintendent. I've been doing this job since July 1st, also a recovering middle school principal and teacher. But what's cool is that now I'm remote teaching every day. I just teach adults. So I'm kind of living the life of what is happening across our nation right now in the world. And it's just been really exciting. So I appreciate you having me here. And one thing I'm looking forward to is really seeing education evolving and changing as we get further into this and as districts get back in session, and seeing some of the great things that we see happening continuing to happen in each and every one of our schools and districts. So thanks for having me.
All right, John, you're next.
Yeah, I'm John Bogey. I teach fourth grade at Wayne Thomas in Highland Park School District 112, Highland Park, Highwood, and Fort Sheridan, Northern Illinois. And I've had a lot of different jobs in education. I've been an aide back in the 90s. I was a substitute teacher. I've taught very wealthy kids. I've taught kids who don't have a whole lot. I've also been an assistant principal, a co-interim principal, a principal, and then back to teaching fourth grade, which is my true love. I've been fortunate to find a good district that is 100% the right fit. I've been teaching fourth grade here for 8 years and absolutely love it. And one thing I'm looking forward to in 2021 is, now that we're returning to our hybrid model, I can't wait to see my students and do some more hands-on projects. I'm looking forward to May. I love the month of May. It's full of celebrations, and we've got our movie project. We've got an aqua track, just these hands-on things that really are some of the things I look forward to most in the year. So.
Thanks, John. All right, Marlon.
Good evening, everybody. Marlon Stiles, proud superintendent, Middletown City School District. Fired up for the conversation tonight. We're an urban district, a proud urban district, educating a little over 6,000 students. Our culture is absolutely on fire right now. Hashtag Midi Rising. Mike said it earlier. I'm trying to get him to say go Packers, but we'll talk about that later. One thing I'm excited about tonight is just to learn from Courtney and John. But in 2021, I'm looking forward to convocation. I can't wait for our district to get everybody in one single spot and just blow the roof off the place and just celebrate kicking off another year together. So looking forward to conversation tonight. I'm excited to dig in. Thanks for having me.
Thank you to all three of you. Nick, thank you for keeping us focused. Nick, if it's okay with you, I'm going to get started with our questions.
Permission granted, Mike. Carry on.
Thank you. Marlon, we'd like you to start off with the first question, which is, a large part of remaining unfinished is a commitment to empathy and equity. What do those words mean to you, and how are you trying to improve your knowledge and practices in the empathy and equity areas?
Yeah, very interesting question. I can't wait to hear from John and Courtney on this topic as well. Equity, right? We've been talking about equity in education now since the pandemic hit. But those who have equity at the core of who we are as educators, we've been digging into this for years. When I hear those words, Mike, the first thing that comes to my mind is being intentionally unequal and how that allows us to be equitable for our students, right? I'm not saying every kid needs the exact same thing, but if we want kids to have what they need, we need to be intentionally unequal to give them the resources and opportunities that they need to be successful in the manner in which they want to be. And for me, that means you have to have courage as a leader. You have to have courage as an educator, courage as a person, to have an equity-centered mission and equity-centered vision. And the first step of that is just digging into the work. You asked a very deep question, and I think for us as educators, if we are unfinished, meaning we've got unfinished business, providing kids with the resources and opportunities that they need, we just have to have the courage to take the first step and dig into the work. Oftentimes we say, I'm not an expert when it comes to equity. Well, you know what? We weren't experts when we started digging into blended learning either, were we? But what do? We dug into the work, we engaged in the conversation, we took care of some unfinished business, we unlearned ourselves, and we figured out blended learning. So let's find that courage to dig into this topic of equity, systemic equity for all, and gather some educators around us in our circle and start taking the first step. And that's finding solutions to have greater outcomes for kids and what their dreams are to come true. Courage. Let's be intentionally unequal about our work.
Marlon, thank you very much. Really powerful. Appreciate you getting us started. John, I know it's not easy to follow Marlon, but we're going to do this to all three of you all night.
Okay. When I think of empathy and equity, I think I got to know as much about my students as I can. More than just the standardized test. I need to know what's going on in their lives. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking back to a student I had one year, and she just burst into tears on Valentine's Day. And, fourth grade, it can be very stressful on a holiday like that. I didn't know at the time she was having a very hard time outside of school. And although that was a very rough moment, that was the beginning of my inspiration to find out everything I could to help this child. And I realized she was going to need more. She was going to need more just to be equal. And I think about that a lot. And I think about all our students and how some of them may need more just to hit that level of equity with others. And that kind of guides me as I go throughout the year and I look at my students and, and really work to find out what they need. And I feel like it may take time for those students to realize that they're getting to their level that they can grow as much as they can. But we're in this for the long haul. And that in itself, it builds more empathy within me when I work to understand from where they come.
John, thank you very much. Courtney, I'd like you to bring it on home with question one.
Thank you for letting me go last, right? And I have to follow these two superstars. I will say that you called me a superstar, and my daughter said, did he just call you a superstar? So thank you.
Yes, I did.
I love it. I love what's been said already. I think that for me, empathy is about living this life of really understanding other people, which I think is so important just in general right now. And we need that in every part of our life, but not living this life of anger and judgment and giving people the benefit of the doubt. And then the equity piece has always been about access and opportunity. But I think right now we're being forced to analyze our systems and ourselves. Like, do we really have access? Do we really have the opportunities? And are school districts really providing it? And so a lot of times, if we're going to dig deep and do some of this work and do it at the right level, we're finding we aren't. And so, just from a parental perspective, we don't get to choose the level of involvement from parents or from differentiation. If we ask for something different for my own child, that should be okay. Like, if we really think about that. So for me, I'm going to be remiss not to at least bring up being the female panelist this evening, the inequities that exist with women in leadership. And we've done a lot of this work in Illinois in particular with the IASA Superwomen Initiative. And that's one of the many ways that we're trying to close this gap, but also expose the inequities for women. We're hosting webinars with women, with hundreds of women that are interested in learning about barriers and challenges and opportunities. So I think it's just, it's such a bigger conversation. And I love both what John and Marlon said, and there's just a lot of work to do in this particular area.
I love all those answers. And I think, Marlon, one of the things that's going to stick with me is that idea of being intentionally unequal. And that's going to stay with me after this webinar is over. When we think about this idea of being unfinished, all of us are a collection of the experiences we've had in our lives, right? And so that's not good or bad. It's just the reality. The bad is if you choose to not acknowledge that and not recognize that through our collection of experiences, we're all missing pieces. So there's all these pieces missing that other people have. And so, you know, an unfinished leader values different points of view. They surround themselves with people who are going to challenge them and help them grow. I want to know, how do you do this? Who do you surround yourself with? What advice can you give the group tonight on that topic? John, you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah. You know, that question kind of reminds me of a sports metaphor. I swam in high school and college, and I found that if I swam with people who were better than me, I got better. So I'm always seeking out the best that I can find to work with. And so I've been really fortunate in 112 to work with amazing teammates. The other fourth grade teachers I've worked with, the other teachers, people who are really gonna push me. And I've been also fortunate enough to work with administrators who have high expectations. And I find that when the bar set high, I will work harder to meet that. So, you know, I also like to apply that to students. I like students who challenge me. My first job in education was what we used to call a LDBD students, learning disabled behavior disorder, quite challenging. And those 2 years I worked as an aide there, I worked harder than I've ever worked before. I'd go home exhausted, but it was a good sense that I was growing, that I was learning. And so those people all around me have really helped me become better. Also, you know, in particular this year, my teammate, I'll give her a shout out. Hi, Annie, Ms. Hoffman. She and I have just this wonderful relationship where we can throw ideas out to each other and we never say no to each other. It's how can we make this happen? And having those people like that who will accept your ideas and bring them to fruition and help you improve upon them is really valuable.
Courtney, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I love what John said, and let's face it, I need all the help I can get. So I'm all about trying to find people around me all the time to help, especially in this new role, because there's so much that's out there. And I think some of the work that we're doing is a direct result of surrounding ourselves with people saying, what do we need to do next to help serve districts and superintendents? And what does this look like? And so as a result, professional development is being responsive to those needs. So I think just even in my role of teaching teachers right now and hearing the life that they're leading and listening to them about the challenges and the struggles and what the needs are, I think that we do ourselves a favor by not being complacent. I mean, just even for my own children, I don't want them to be surrounded by people who are complacent. And so, you know, we also need inspiration and hope and positivity and respect that goes along with our profession and our work. And I think all of those things are really, really important. So I think we do ourselves a favor when we surround ourselves by people who challenge us. Certainly Mike and Nick are two of those people for me, Marlon and John. You know, obviously we're just constantly learning from each other and we can't do that enough. So I just think it's such a great opportunity when we expose ourselves to different beliefs and opportunities that are out there.
Marlon, how do you do this, and what advice can you give the group tonight?
Yeah, first I'll shout out the Packers once more. But I think their question is, it touches something that's very personal. No matter who's listening in tonight, you got to accept the fact that you are unfinished. right? There's still work and business to be done as far as developing yourself. I'll be vulnerable and openly admit it. I am not perfect. I see big pictures, but when it comes to bringing an idea to life, I'm absolutely horrible. So I value my team. I say the team matters all the time. I surround myself with people like Fran Morrison, Deb Hauser, Liz Beadle, Randy Bertram, who really complete the idea of going from vision to reality and implementation. But that starts by admitting what your flaws are. And mine is getting past an idea and bringing it to life. For me, I find processes, systems, practices that work to support my way of leading, of educating. And for me, the design thinking process, it works. So that involves people and different minds and different beliefs. But the process brings people to the table to help amplify the idea and allow them to own a major part of the process to bring it to life. For me, that's considering process over my own stubborn solutions. And admitting the fact that other people have beautiful minds way better than I ever will have when it comes to really bringing things and opportunities to life for kids. But you got to admit that you are unfinished to start out with.
Thank you very much. Let me ask you this question. Part of the journey of unfinished leadership is the constant struggle with self-care and work-life integration. How do you find balance and take care of yourself so that you can take care of others? Courtney, I'd like you to get started on this one, please.
Well, isn't that ironic, given the fact that I hang out with you and Nick, and you know I don't take care of myself all that well, and I'm super unfinished. So thanks for letting me go first. I don't think I'm good at this, but I think I'm getting better. I do believe I will forever be unfinished in this, but I got a Peloton. I don't think I told you that, Mike and Nick. I got a Peloton.
Right.
And it's a mess. I'm not going to lie, but I'm super motivated by these teachers. In fact, I'm convinced that there are some really great educational lessons that we can learn from the Peloton community. Not that I'm selling a Peloton, but I want you to think about this. So it's no surprise to you. I love McRibs. I had one tonight. And this idea, I know, John, you're with me on this, aren't you?
Oh man, I got to get one. It's like a caramel cake.
I know. Okay. I love it. So this idea, though, of taking care of yourself and being physically and mentally and emotionally healthy, it's real. But I believe that we're plagued with a lot of guilt about how much we work. So like your co-authors, PJ, for example, when he talks about the idea that it's not a time management issue, it's a self-management issue, he's spot on about that. And so sometimes I've felt guilty about work so much of my life, having 2 young children at home, but I love working. And I feel like that guilt that I have harbored and carried around with me, when I can let that piece go and be okay with the idea that I love working, I also love my children. So maybe there's days where it's like work, 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 work. I know that all of you can totally understand that. But then there are days it's like, no, today is all about you. And we're going to watch this movie and play this game. So it is about integration. My predecessor, Dr. Volt, says there's no such thing as balance. It's about integration. So just that idea, because if you watch these Peloton instructors, I'm not lying, there is energy behind the work and it makes you want to come back every single day. And that's a type of energy that we need in our field right now. But you have to have that energy internally, I think, to be able to be self-motivated. So thanks for letting me go first on that one. I knew there was a reason.
Courtney, thank you. Marlon, I would love for you to take this one now, please.
Yeah, Courtney taught me this a long time ago, actually just a couple of years ago, Courtney. But a fresh mind is way more impactful than a tired mind, right? Than a tired body. So focusing on yourself is absolutely critical. You're at your best when you're fresh and you are charged up. But you got to have the awareness, the self-awareness to admit, I'm worn out. And I may have to disconnect, unplug to go recharge to come back to be a better version of me. But that's self-awareness and being able to have the courage to step away so you can be more productive down the road. For me, it's very simple. And we live this as part of our Midi Rising culture. You got to have a blast at work to take care of yourself while you're at work. We get in this mindset that it's always all business 100% of the time, but have fun while you're taking care of your business. Celebrate the work, celebrate your students, celebrate the culture, and celebrate other people. For me, that offers me personal balance while I'm at work, and it keeps my mind fresh. When I come home, it's easy. I got an unbelievable wife who's in education to start with. We have good conversation, but not about education, right? You walk through the threshold of that door in a garage, and it's just family time. Dance parties. I'm not going to tell you I can't dance, but I can. We have dance parties and we enjoy ourselves. But when it's time to work, when it's time for that personal balance, making sure that you're fresh and charged up, allows you to be a better person at home and a better educator while you're at work. But self-awareness is key. And I just challenge anyone listening tonight to schedule times to do those self-awareness checks for you while you're on the job, and have those self-awareness checks at home to make sure you are present for your family and your loved ones.
Thank you very much, Marlon. Appreciate that. John?
Yeah, I'd say sort of going off of what Marlon and Courtney said, it's for me, it's having an understanding wife that sometimes there are going to be moments when I have to stay late at work for parent-teacher conferences, or it's a Sunday and I need to go over to the pancake breakfast we're having, whatever it may be. And usually they'll actually come with me, which is really nice. And I get a little bit of integration of work and home life. But there are those moments, and I got to schedule with my family or just make sure I'm always there, that we're going to have a movie night, that we're all going to go out to dinner. But also individually, taking care of myself physically. We bought an elliptical machine, and that's starting to really change our lives, actually. We're using it every day. Also, just time to be outside in nature. And I find I meditate a little. It helps me focus. Just taking a few minutes to just quietly breathe, and just help me focus. It really brings everything together for me. So I found those things really help me balance. But this is a job. I mean, education is a job that you can get sucked in, and it could be Friday and it could be 7 o'clock and you could still be in your classroom working. And those first couple of years, I had a couple moments like that where I'm like, wait a minute, I need to step back and take care of me and see my friends, see my family, and unplug. And I'm really excited that I'm really happy that our principal, our administration really encourage us, like over break, to relax. And they use that phrase, unplug. And that's never more true than now with all the Zoom we're using and everything being online. Am I successful at it? Not as much as I'd like to be. It's a work in progress. So that's unfinished.
Thank you all very much for that.
You know, listening to all three of you talk, it kind of reminds me of something. The work we all do is important. That should go without saying. The impact of the work that we do when done well is generational. We can change the lives of generations of children through the work we do. But the work we do is also temporary. Every one of us is replaceable. At some point, there's going to be another person doing the job that we're in right now. And when that day comes, we go back to the family. We go back to the friends without all the work stuff. And I think a friend of ours once told us that he tapes a Post-it note inside his garage by the door that says PILY, stands for People Inside Love You. And it's his reminder for no matter how bad the day is, no matter what it is you were dealing with, when you walk through that door, the people inside had nothing to do with that. They love you. And so, you know, if you want them to be around when the work part's over, don't forget them while the work part's happening. So thank you for reminding me of that. You guys, those were amazing answers.
Yes, they were.
So, you know, this work of education has a way of being repetitive and looking a lot today like it looked a long time ago. In most schools you go. And so, you know, maintaining that status quo, maintaining what we know can be really easy. Committing to being unfinished brings a fear of the unknown. It brings challenges and fears. So, you know, when you think about that, the need to overcome the status quo, what are you doing now to make sure that you're preparing kids for their tomorrow?
I would say for me, if you're talking truly unfinished, an unfinished leader, for me, status quo means we have to stop something and do it differently. So for me, where my mind goes when you ask that question, Nick, is right now, our profession, we are trained to give kids a platform to amplify their voices. If we truly are talking about unfinished leadership, We need to stop giving kids our platform to amplify their voices. And I would say to disrupt the status quo, that we need to start giving students their platforms to amplify their voices. Meaning let's just stop for a moment. Let's listen to what they want. Let's stop creating and hoping that it's going to be impactful for our students, right? Let's stop hoping kids are going to like it. Let's stop hoping that it's going to be successful for our kids. Let's start creating the platforms that our kids are wanting, so that they know when they walk in the door that they're going to be successful, if that makes sense. So for me, that status quo piece is let's amplify our kids' voices on the platforms that they want. Let's be unfinished about what we have been doing and take a different approach.
I agree exactly what Marlon said, I think is spot on. I think the pandemic is giving us a direct insight into some things that we really should have been doing all along. So I love this idea of challenging the status quo, and I'll take a different angle and say, from a teaching perspective, or just getting to know our students. I've always, when I was building Principal, I said to my staff, do you think we really know our students? Yes, 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 of course we do. Almost offended that I asked the question. And when we actually did an activity, we realized, I don't know that we know them at the level that we think we could. So some of these really small things that are happening right now, I believe when I said earlier, let's think about what education will look like in some of these little things. There's just little tweaks that we could do. For example, teachers that send out an interest survey to all students at the beginning of the year. I would say send it out 3 times a year, because my child is very different in August than he is in January, than he's going to be in May. And what a great opportunity. And I think giving kids either one-on-one, getting into a Zoom, doing a flip grid, letting them talk to you, I think that there's power in that, and really individualizing and personalizing the work at a level that we haven't done. The other thing from a parental standpoint would be, we typically ask parents at the beginning of the year, tell me about your child, and we give them a space to do that. I would argue that we should be doing that 3 times a year, because divorces and trauma and death doesn't just happen in the summer. And so something that happens in November, a parent might not be comfortable picking up the phone and calling, but if you send me a Google form or another survey that just simply says, tell me what I should know about your child, is appropriate for kindergarten, middle school, and high school. And we've had high school teachers come back and say, wow, I had parents fill that out. Right, because high schoolers are children, and it's why we have teachers. So just some of these little things that I think we're learning along the way when we really personalize this work, that's what I'm so hopeful for moving forward. And it's just little tweaks to some of the great work that teachers are already doing.
Courtney, I wrote down what you said about that survey idea. I love that. And on the surveys, one thing I do one at the beginning of the year, I say, what do you need me to do to help your child be successful? And I know that the best teachers, they know they're going to have to change during the year. They're going to have to change what they're doing to meet their kids' needs. And I think that question would be a fantastic question. You know, we're in January. What would you like me to do differently? Or phrase something like that. It's a great idea. When I think of preparing kids for tomorrow, you know, I need them to be able, I think they need to be able to problem solve. They need to be able to work in teams and get along with each other and get along as humans. And because in the future, I see whatever jobs are going to be out there, they're going to have to work as teams to solve them, to do them, to complete their goals. And we don't know what technologies are necessarily going to be available, but if we can teach them to be independent learners, to have that drive, that passion to learn and understand the world around them, I don't think there's anything they can't do. I mean, their future will have no limits. So those are 2 things I really look at. And when I'm designing activities in the classroom and looking at the year as a whole, it's like it's kind of like you're riding a big riding a horse. You're kind of letting it go more and more by itself. You're letting go of the reins, and next thing you know, they're doing all the work themselves. And I think we all know that the classroom in April looks very different than the classroom in September. And that's something I always work towards, is being able to sit there in April, just sit back in my chair, look around. They all know what to do. They're all doing it. And they're just coming to me if they have a question. And that's one way I chart my success. But and the student success.
Mike and Nick, can I expand on something that Courtney and John hit on right now? I think that's very intentional about the question that you're asking. So if I'm admitting that I'm an unfinished leader, I need to be a better version of myself, always can improve. I got to unlearn some things right now real fast, if you don't mind. So Courtney and John are really hammering home tonight the fact that we have to find a better way to understand all of our students, no matter what shade of purple they are. We've got to find a way to reimagine how we serve them differently by getting to know them. So if we truly are being honest tonight, we've got to unlearn this idea of making data-based decisions to better instruct and provide educational experiences for our students. If the data-based approach has continued to lead us towards an academic achievement gap, AKA equity opportunity gap, we got to find a new approach. John and Courtney are saying this very loud and clear tonight. Let's serve students differently in a better personalized manner by getting to know them and how they want to be educated. And let's see if that approach, after we unlearn and relearn and finish some business in a new way, gives us a better return on investment of our students by having to become more successful. So I just want to, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but they really hit home tonight when the two of you just answered that question about serving kids differently, not making decisions about kids based off of data. Does that mean?
Marlon, thank you.
Yeah. Marlon, Mike and PJ and I, we use the example of a rubber band. If you think of your work, think of your classroom, your building, your school district like a rubber band. What are these made to do? You know, they're made to stretch, right? They're made to change shape to whatever they're needed for. And so, you know, that's what you need to do. That's why, you know, the status quo isn't good enough. We got to do this instead. We got to try this. And we've all opened a drawer in our office and found some rubber bands that have been sitting there for 5 years that nobody ever touched. And you pick them up and what happened to them? They're brittle.
Yeah.
They break right in half. You know, so, you know, if you leave your organization alone and don't do any stretching and expanding for 5 years, don't be surprised when it gets brittle and broken.
Well said. Nick, we've got a couple questions in the Q&A box. So if you want to go to the Q&A box, we've got 3 questions. What does racial justice mean to you? What's the best leadership advice you can give someone? And how can school counselors support the work and direction of our administration? Nick, is it okay if we call an audible and go into the Q&A before we go into our 5th question?
Yeah. Is any of the 3 of you moved to respond to one of those 3 questions?
Can I respond to the one about the counselors?
Of course, yes.
I got to say, full disclosure, my mom is a retired school social worker. So I like to say I kind of grew up in therapy, but not really. You know, so maybe I've always felt a strong connection to social workers who function largely as similar to counselors in our elementary schools. And I like when they come into my classroom. Our social worker right now is regularly in my room all the time. She knows all my students, and that connection allows me to go to her and draw on her experiences, her knowledge, to help me better serve my students. Maybe I need to do something differently. Maybe I need to, you know, like we've all been saying, this child's going to need this, whatever this is. It might be just every, 10 minutes going with them and checking in. How you doing? Do you understand the directions? Or it might be that they need a little special lunch every now and then with a group of friends and come into the room and something like that. So, but I've always enjoyed bringing other people, and not just the counselor, the principal, our ELL teacher, as many people into my room as I can to broaden that support for students.
The best leadership advice that I can give someone is to hone in on what effective communication really is. Communication at the end of the day is, whether it be in your personal life or your professional life, if you can effectively communicate, you will be successful as a leader. So if you think about, being a principal, being a superintendent, we have a lot of people that will say, well, I don't want to be a superintendent because I love being with the kids. Go ahead and look at the 3 superintendents right here. they are with the kids. The superintendency is what you make of it. It's about communicating what your vision is, what your core value is. So there's so many realms of communication, but I still believe at the end of the day, it's about being able to communicate in a way that you are empathetic and that you're humble and all of these things. You can learn different pieces of the work, but great leadership is grounded in communication at the end of the day.
I would love to take a moment and talk about the question around racial justice. In Middletown, we celebrate all shades of purple, period, end of story. It's our culture, it's the backbone of who we are. We're all of one united community. If we're talking unfinished leadership or just unfinished as a person, we have to admit the fact right now that our system, our education system is broken. It's not serving our brown and our black students specifically in this country. Historically, we have defined it as an achievement gap. We all know right now it's an opportunity gap, period, end of story. So if we're talking racial justice right now, we have to be very specific and intentional and have the courage to admit the fact that when it comes to brown and black students, they're not performing as well as our white students in this country. Is that a district perspective as well, or classroom perspective as well? All to be determined about where you're from in this world. But the specific about the topic of racial justice, our country was lit on fire after the unfortunate murder of George Floyd. A lot of advocacy started to surface across this country and in education. Students in our district really took a leadership perspective, and they stood up and they started advocating, fighting for some racial justice things that they just had on their hearts that were weighing on them about some inequities and experiences that they faced. So I go back to what I said earlier tonight. If we need to ask the question about what the definition of racial justice is, I would encourage us to admit the fact that we are unfinished. Stop giving kids a platform that is ours to amplify their voices. I would encourage anyone who is curious about the definition of that phrase to go to a student or a group of students, ask them what platform they need to amplify their voice, sit back in the room, listen, and start finishing up ourselves as leaders and as educators to understand from a student's perspective that we serve what racial justice actually means. Take our bias out of the conversation, put it off to the side, accept the fact that we are unfinished, and just take a moment in the student's platform and listen to what they have to say. I think that will open our eyes, not just give us a definition, but more importantly, the students will tell us what they need to be done to get away from the current broken structure of our education system, to reimagine what it should be to better serve all shades of purple or all shades of students that we serve, specifically our brown and our black students.
Marlon, thank you. Marlon, if you would be so kind as to expand on the concept of being intentionally unequal. One of our friends, John Tallman, who's superintendent in Illinois, we type that into the chat, and that would be, we'll do that Q&A if you're cool with that.
Yeah, I'd love to be expand on that just a little bit. So Aaron Rodgers and Mitchell Trubisky, they're different, right? They play the same exact position, but they're different. And I don't know where I'm going to go with this, Mike, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. I just had to say it. I couldn't help myself. I just know you guys are Bears fans. And hopefully that's making somebody smile out there that's a Bears fan.
Yes.
Intentionally. What's that, John?
Oh, we're used to it.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about being intentionally unequal, right now in education, our system is built to send opportunities, resources, programs, and have kids have access to them. But if we're being intentionally unequal, it means that we have equity-centered outcomes that are specific to those who we have traditionally been, quote, underserving, right? Or those who we are not serving. So if you do some type of audit and you discover that Black students, if brown students, whatever the category of student may be, if they are not performing where they need to, you need to be very intentional about the resources and the approach, the strategies, the solution, the outcome that you're seeking that's very specific and targeted for the population in which it's intended to. It would not be appropriate to intentionally put a solution in play and expect it to serve a certain population and give it to everyone. My thoughts about being intentionally unequal is to admit the fact that we're underserving or we're not serving a group of student or a type of student, to find a specific solution for that student or students and direct it specifically to them. Now, typically in education, in my opinion, we shy away from saying this one solution or this one thing or this one concept or idea is going to benefit this one singular type of student. We shy away from that because we think everybody should have access to it. But if we're reshifting our priorities, if we're unfinished, if we're going to unlearn our behaviors, I would recommend that we have the courage to say that we are not serving this student or this type of student, and that we be intentional about what we're providing that specific group, even though the other groups of students are not getting any type of response or new solution, while this group here is getting some. That takes courage to step away from what we've been trained to think and do, and have the courage to say, yes, we're underserving someone. We're going to have a new way of going about helping them out.
Marlon, just to build off what you just said, I think that there is an inherent humility necessary in order to lead in that way, because you need to turn the focus inward first before you can turn it outward. You need to be able to, identify and confront your conscious and unconscious biases that we all have. It's part of what happens growing up. Like we said earlier, you're only the collection of your life experiences. Yeah. And so when Mike and I have had a chance to work with groups, and we say, when you think about the students that you work with, or think about the students you've experienced, but then think about another group of students that you haven't had experience with, where do you get your knowledge base about those kids and what they need? And we've asked groups of educators, where do you find your experiences about Indian students? And they'll say, well, from watching The Simpsons, from Apu, crazy answers. And, we use the example, it's kind of a silly example, but kind of not. I grew up watching movies, and one of my favorite movies growing up was Vacation with Chevy Chase, where he's taking the kids cross country to Wally World. Mm-hmm. And, park's closed, moose out front, should have told you. But there's a scene in that movie that's resonated to me as an adult when they get lost and they take an exit into a bad part of town. And what does Chevy Chase tell his kids? Roll them up, close your windows. We're around people that look different than us. This is not safe. Those kind of messages, they burrow their way into your head, whether you know them or not throughout your lifetime. So trying to identify and root those things out, whether you put them there or not, is necessary before you can do the work that you're talking about. Mike, we're getting close on time here. So you want to give them a chance on that final question?
Yes, I do. So panelists, we're going to start with Courtney and then go Marlon, then John. When you think about your school district or your community, give a shout out to someone who's changing lives every day. Please share a brief, quick story or example.
Well, there's so many. That's hard to just choose one, but I'm going to. So if I think about my school district, I'm going to say it as a parent, since I'm not leading an actual school district right now, but there could have been so many people that I could have said. I'm going to give a shout out to Mrs. Payton, my daughter's first grade teacher. And this woman is absolutely incredible. I watch what she does as a parent. She is so great with communication, but what she's great about is personalizing and making my daughter feel so special. And if I'm driving to daycare in the morning and I ask Elle, what are you doing today? She said to me, Mrs. Payton's going to talk to me today. And I'm like, oh, great. What did you do wrong? She said, no, she just wants to talk to me. And so at the end of the day, some of the work that we do, it is so personal. And these educators that we see being heroic in all of their work, I just have to give a shout out to her for making my daughter feel like she is smart and making her feel like she's important and special and that she has a voice, and she's in first grade and she's 7 years old. And that type of, my daughter wants to grow up and be a teacher. and it's because of her. So like, to me, there's nothing better and more profound and important than the profession of teaching.
Thank you very much, Courtney. Thank you. Marlon.
Courtney, I don't know what else there's to say. That's the most inspirational thing I think I've heard in months.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to reverse it a little bit, Courtney, if you don't mind. My shout out is going to be for students in my district, all 6,200 plus. They didn't ask for a pandemic. They didn't ask for remote learning. They didn't ask for the hybrid model that we're sitting in. We often, as educators, we talk about us and how difficult this year has been for us. But our students, this has been a challenging year for them. And our students have had to not only change their own lives, but change the lives of their peers and change the lives of their educators. So my shout out goes to kids who show up every day in remote, hybrid, virtual, online, whatever type of model that you have. They show up and they give you their absolute best, no matter what it may be or may not be. So shout out to kids in my district, shout out to kids across this country who are inspiring us as educators, who are unfinished educators, trying to give you our absolute best. We're able to stay fresh and keep going because of the kids. So raise the roof, shout out to them, whatever your tagline may be. Very grateful for what kids are doing for us as adults right now.
Marlon, thank you. John.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to my principal, Michael Rodrigo. There are many things he does. He is unbelievable. But one thing that I absolutely love that he does is we call it kudos calls. And I fill out a little note, send it to the office, boom, he calls home. And the reactions, I always go up to him later, I try to find him and say, how was the reaction? And the kids love it. The parents love it. And it's that connection of saying, my kid's teacher wanted the principal to call me to tell me how great my kid is. He did this awesome thing in class. And it builds that connection because the parents are our partners. Too often, I think they feel like they don't know what's going on. Is my kid okay? Especially at the younger grades. And these calls go so far towards building a community of support. And I just love the way he does it. And his assistant principal, Colleen Grady, does it with him too. My favorite story is one, they made a call home and they actually got a whole, because of remote learning, the girl was there. She started crying a little bit because no one had ever done anything like that for her. And when you see moments like that, it's just, it breaks your heart a little bit. It's with joy. I mean, it's just a wonderful experience. So I'm very appreciative for him and all his efforts. He is always busy. I don't know how he finds time to do all of these, but he does.
Wow. Well, thank you, John, Courtney, and Marlon. Talk about unfinished leaders and unfinished leadership. Nick and I are so proud of you. We're grateful to National Life Group, the LifeChanger of the Year.com, the AASA. We're the second of 3 TeacherTalk webinars. We did Unlearning Leadership earlier this month. Tonight's Unfinished Leadership, and next week on January 28th at 7 p.m. Central, we'll be talking about student voice in leadership. Nick, why don't you bring it on home? Thank you, by the way, to the people in the chat box and the Q&A.
And a huge thank you to Courtney, to Marlon, to John, to Mallory, to Daryl, all of you for making this happen tonight. If you've never nominated someone for LifeChanger of the Year, please do it. We had one of our security guards win a few years back. We had a big surprise assembly for him. And, you talk about making somebody's day, week, month, year, career. There are all these people out there that are deserving of the recognition. If we just take the time to put their name out there, who knows what might happen. And so we're just excited that you spent some time with us tonight. And so we want to say thank you and good luck with this crazy, crazy school year we're all dealing with. And hopefully you'll come back and join us again next week on the 28th. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you all so much.